Hi, this is Bruce Kidd with the Kidd Consulting Group, and this is our next installment of Insights for Executives video series. I'm delighted to have a guest speaker today to talk about a really important topic, one that's near and dear to my heart, which is marketing. And I'm joined today by Ira Maher, who's the Vice President of Strategy for The Basement, a full-service marketing, advertising, and PR firm here in Indianapolis that a lot of people I'm finding don't know about, but you should, because they are excellent at what they do. They have a very talented team, including my guest Ira today. And they were recently named one of the top 75 fastest growing advertising companies in the world, not Indianapolis or Indiana or the country, in the world. So that's a pretty incredible award.
Yeah.
So Ira, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you.
Marketing. I'm going to tell a quick story. So early in my career, well, first half of my career, I spent a lot of time with entrepreneurial companies, startups, high tech, some established companies, and I read more business plans than any one human should probably read. And it was consistent in almost every one that the marketing plan of the business plan was the weakest part. Mm-hmm. And these are companies that were historically looking to raise money. And so you have to have a good story to tell. And I think that's fairly consistent in today's world. The marketing strategy and plan is really a challenge for some entrepreneurs and business owners to really put together in a well-orchestrated fashion. And I also find that a lot of business owners see marketing as an expense item. You know, it's a cost of doing business. I got to spend money on it. I don't really know what I get for it. So, how should business owners be thinking about their marketing strategy in this uncommon, crazy economy world we're in right now?
Yeah.
What works from your perspective?
So in the context of today, this is the million-dollar question, multiple million-dollar question of, I am at a business owner at a place where I really count on consistent, predictable revenue, and I need confidence in what's coming to me. Yeah. And the CMO role in firms around the space is the one that turns over most frequently. And that's commonly attributed to the fact that marketing officers historically have been perceived as a little bit aloof and not able to connect with their solution, what they are proposing to the outcomes of the business writ large. That's changing as we go. But how to think about what you're doing. A lot of times what we'll advise clients is to analyze the brands that they have deep relationships with. Sometimes it's, I love the restaurant down the street from me. I love this brand of shirt. I ride my Peloton bike every single morning. I go to this club or whatever. And universally, what that relationship is built on is deep intent from that particular brand to build a long-term relationship with that customer, no matter the case, to tell consistent over time story that's really meaningful about that brand. And so that's a consistent investment as a business in building a long-term relationship with a customer. And that happens with Charmin, where you're buying it all the time, and it happens with cars that you're buying on a more irregular basis, but telling that and committing to that story for a period of time and being really intentional about building that experience is universally what functions, whether it's a B2C environment, a B2B environment, B2B2C, or direct to consumer. All of those places, that's the consistent thing. There's so I subscribe to all the kind of market communication about marketing, and so every potential advertising salesperson is sending a report right now that says why you should not cut investment in times of recession. Yeah. And that answer from their perspective is always defensive of whatever particular medium they are selling. But what you can say for sure is that changing an investment strategy heading into a recession is sure to have the anticipated outcome in the future. You stop spending, you stop investing in telling that story, you're going to feel that impact. Depending on your business, you might feel it next month, or you might feel it 2 or 3 years from now. Which, from a biased perspective, I love helping clients to fulfill advertising and marketing needs. But what we tend to be advising clients at this particular time is be really thoughtful about what is core to building that relationship with your customer, and keep investing in that. Now's not the time to go paint on the side of a building, do something really crazy that you've never tested before, but it's absolutely the time to know what you're good at and stick to it.
Yeah. I mean, it really is about an investment as opposed to an expense.
Yeah.
And I know that's difficult sometimes, especially during tough economic times when maybe sales are down. But as you said, that's the exact time to make those investments for the future if you don't want times to stay down.
Yeah.
So the investment, as in investing in the stock market, it's not a quick fix. It's long-term, thoughtful strategy, looking for a return on that investment down the road. Is that fair?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's why our communication to clients is to be ruthless about what your business is good at in establishing relationships with customers and generating revenue off of those relationships, and double down on that in these particular times. That answer to the thing that we are good at is almost always not the thing that I or a business owner likes.
Yeah.
It might be they love having the billboard down the street, or I love having the presence in the local newspaper. But when you say what is the thing that's really you can attribute things to, it's not always that thing. So that's the tough part of the decision.
Yeah. And this is kind of a question out of left field for you, but I know you're skilled at answering all this stuff. It really is about telling the story, as you said earlier, and the story has to be revolving around not the features of your product or service, because people don't buy features. What they buy is benefit to them. How do you make their life better or easier? Fair?
Absolutely. Quite commonly in our consultation with clients, we're interfacing with a product owner, a person whose livelihood is based on building a set of features and benefits, or features for and specifications for a product.
Right.
And ultimately what we are responsible for doing is convincing a customer that will create lasting value for them. And it's that translation on value and understanding how the customer ascribes value, and then communicating those features and benefits in that same language. That's what cracks the code. And a lot of times it's very, very difficult for business owner, executive leader who's responsible for a particular product to do that kind of disassembly in their mind and feel comfortable with a thing that ascribes 1, 2, or 3 words to that value when they have a sheet of paper that says it does all of these things, and you're only going to tell them that one, that one thing. But ultimately, you have to be where the customer is, and customer doesn't always care about all those things. I don't care that my car has secret double brakes and all this cushioning and all these things. I care that it's safe, it looks good, and it's fun to drive.
Ruthlessly focused on the value prop is really what's important. I don't want to sound like a grumpy old man talking about the internet, but there's lots of good that has happened because of the creation of the internet. But it also has created this quick fix for a lot of people, instant gratification for just about anything they want. And I would include in that business solutions and marketing included, marketing tools and strategies, and the next book and the next video. How does a business owner who's watching this get above all that noise that's out there? Because so much of it's noise. And really just work with his team and talented individuals like you to navigate that noise, to really focus on what's important.
So our recommendation is to focus on the story you want to tell. What is that value proposition? Let's be ruthless about the value proposition. And then be honest about where the end customer is actually spending their time, and where they are willing to engage with a message from your business. So over the course of the last 5 years, the most efficient way to spend $1 in marketing terms is to give it to Facebook and say, serve some ads. Especially in a business-to-business environment, you might be a person who loves my brand or who I want to do business with. When you are on Facebook, you are not thinking about your business life. And so that's the hard thing to pull out of. There's all of these solutions, and we're all seeing them on a daily basis. We're seeing ads in a lot of different places, but it's being able to tell that story in the place where the consumer is not only consuming content that you can serve advertising around or sponsor through advertising, but willing to react and respond to a message in that space and not feel as though they are being encumbered and their experience is being encumbered. There's a great piece of research that came out a couple of years ago that identified there's all of these ways to target folks. One of the most efficient way to target is actually what's called contextual advertising. So that's if I want to sell cars, I serve advertising on the internet around stories about cars. And now you can do all this to make sure that it's about positive stories about cars. That is the most consistent way to reach a target audience, because we as consumers do so much with our devices to protect ourselves that the validity of the data now to identify, well, I want, a male 35 who visits a coffee shop 3 times a week and has 2 kids. I can buy that on the open marketplace. The reality is it's not as efficient a way to go about advertising as it is described to be.
Yeah, that's interesting. I am sure you've heard this adage, but there's an old saying that business executives and owners say in running their business, I know that half of my marketing strategy is working. I just don't know which half. How do you advise, what would you advise business owners watching this on how they evaluate what's working?
There's very unlikely a world where we're going to be able to say what 100% of it is doing, for sure.
Absolutely.
In the same way that I don't necessarily know what 100% of my sales force is doing on a daily basis, engaging with customers. So making sure that the panacea is clear on where we want to get. But the core, to me, is having a trusted relationship with a practitioner in this space, be that a colleague who's on the payroll and is responsible for marketing, but ensuring that there's a trusted level of relationship there where you as a business executive know that what's coming from that person is both honest and acknowledging downstream impact. So it's not just revenue return, but margin return, customer retention, the things that actually drive the longevity of a business. When I spoke earlier about CMOs being a place of high turnover, it's ascribed to CMO coming in and saying, here's our brand new campaign, and everybody else in the room going, well, that doesn't actually connect with what we need to do as a business. So building that trusted relationship with either external party or internal party, where you know that the information you're getting it recognizes the skills of marketing, also acknowledges what your business needs.
I spent a fair amount of my professional career driving up and down 65 from here to Chicago, more times than I would have liked. And I found myself sort of subconsciously checking out all the billboards along the interstate. And then one day, it became very conscious. I actually counted. When I left 465 and got to the Loop in Chicago, I counted the number of billboards between here and Chicago, logged it in my head, and then thought about which ones do I actually remember the message. And it was less than 5 that I remembered. There were over 100, by the way, billboards. And I remembered the message of 5. What that said to me was there's a lot of noise and not much of it's very effective. So the people watching us are not running AT&T and IBM with unlimited budgets. How does a business owner with a small private company get above the noise in the marketplace? Because he or she has competitors obviously selling similar products. What's the magic of getting above that noise so that I'm one of those billboards that my potential customers that I'm not serving now will remember? What do you think works?
So ruthless storytelling and meeting the consumer. 2 things. Ruthless storytelling, in the sense of being ruthlessly focused on the story, and meeting the end buyer in the space where they are comfortable making a buying decision. I'm going to go out on a limb and say the 5 that you remembered were things that were either relevant to you in that particular time,
Correct.
or the message was about something that you felt comfortable responding to in a rather immediate period.
Yeah.
So an outdoor, billboard for healthcare services when you're driving, maybe not the thing that you're going to be responding to in that particular moment.
Yeah.
And so that's the type of thing that is important to establish, that you understand what your story is and you're committed to telling that story,
Yeah.
and you do it in places where the end buyer is naturally inclined to engage with that message and convert on it in whatever you're asking them to
Yeah.
do. We see most people between 4,000 and 10,000 advertisements in a day. When you count all the logos on watches and cars and billboards, and that is a massive
Really?
number of brand engagements in every single day. And
Wow.
and so when you think of that space, it makes it a little bit easier to go, ew, that's a lot. I need to be committed to the things that help me tell my story.
Yeah.
And do that in a way that is very, very disciplined, and not, well, my competitor, bought an ad in the local paper or is serving ads on Facebook, so I should be serving ads on Facebook.
Yeah. Now that I think back, I think 3 of the 5 billboards I remember were Cracker Barrel. That's probably not a good thing. That says too much about me, I think. Okay, so here's the other thing that I have heard many times from owners of small businesses. I've got a marketing director. I think he or she's pretty good. I've got a sales team of half a dozen men and women out in the field, trying to drum up business. It just doesn't seem like they're aligned very well. It's just not working the way I want to drive, we'll call it new sales opportunities in the pipeline. You see that?
Yes, that is pretty well universally problem number 1 that we help businesses address. And there's a concept that's grown in the marketplace, in the last decade or so. This concept of a CRO, Chief Revenue Officer. That's a person who's responsible for revenue. And what we ascribe are, so we might not be able to say, you need a CRO, or we're going to place a CRO to bring everything together. But the concept is, when you consider that a buyer goes through a set of touch points in their process of going from, I need this product, or I am aware of this product, to I'm doing business with you. Those touch points, that consumer buyer does not care whether that touch point is a salesperson who's calling on them, or an advertisement that's been placed, or a piece of content that they view on the internet. They are viewing that as one thing, from non-revenue producing entity to revenue producing entity for me as a business owner.
Yep.
And so finding the right way to harmonize that in the business, but being intentional about the fact that they have to work together is really critical. And the nature of your business is probably going to dictate whether you give a little bit more of that responsibility to a sales leader or a marketing leader. It's just you're going to instinctively kind of know what is going to push your business more, but you need to have that kind of single source of responsibility who is envisioning the entirety of that buyer's experience with your company.
Okay, good, thank you. I think my last question, we'll see. Technology influences everything in all our lives, including business, obviously. I recently heard about Metaverse, Web3. I don't even know what those are.
Yeah.
But share with our audience the future of marketing from a technology, digital platform, whatever you think is important for the CEO of a $100 million company to know in the future they need to be thinking about this.
Yeah. Thank you for the question, because it's the type of thing that I spend a lot of time really kind of focused on and thinking about, because ultimately, as an external advisor, that's value add that we can bring to the table. The concept of the metaverse is incredibly difficult to wrap your mind around, because we are saying all of the stuff that is around us now magically is created digitally, and that's the world in which I, as a buyer or consumer, am going to live. I think it's fair to say that there's going to be some impact of, or convergence of, a digitally rendered environment and a real true environment at point X way down the road. Mark Zuckerberg would like that point X to be much closer than the consumer population is probably ready to get to. So awareness of the fact that is a reality. A certain portion of current buyers and consumers are spending a proportion of their time in a world that they cannot feel or touch, but is reflected in that space. Knowing that that's there, and then based on the nature of your business, how soon is that something that's going to impact? If you are on the bleeding edge of consumer serving customers, under the age of 25 at this point, that's probably got to be on your radar, and you need to engage a party to help you. If your business is one that is, selling manufacturing goods, then probably a little bit further away, unless you need to render. We serve heavy manufacturing companies. They got to render giant machinery in a 3D multiverse space because that's important to their sales process. So that's the nature of the way things go. On the Web3 side, the general concept of Web3 is that the first version of the internet was read. We were able to publish things in a space that was accessible to multiple parties. The second version of Web 2 was write. So we got to social platforms where you or I could put something into that internet. Web 3 is the concept of ownership. So there being assets within a digital space that you or I or another party can actually hold and own.
Okay.
And so cryptocurrency is kind of the most relevant means. But smart contracts are built on Web3, and the concept of smart contracts is a contract that lives in in an internet-based space. That's something that very much is going to be relevant to us as business owners. Not really a marketing thing,
Right.
but it's a real, true today application of Web3 that is important for business owners to have an understanding of, because it can have an important impact on their business.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's a brave new world. Last thing. 3 things that you would tell that business owner watching us to think about focusing on in the next year with regard to their marketing strategy. Top 3 things they should just think about. Whether they can get them all implemented or not, they've got to be on the radar screen.
Understand what your story is as a business, what you want the customer at the day they purchase and 2 years, 3 years, whatever your timeline is in the future to know and trust about your business. Understand what that is and be really cognizant of it and share that with people. The second is to understand what your business does well in generating new revenue. Understand what those tactics are. It might be sales. It might be really efficient advertising. It might be creative storytelling. But know what that thing is and be really ruthless about investing in that and not getting too distracted by all of the other macro impacts. And the third, I think, is to really be honest about the relationships that you have with practitioners in the marketing space, whether on your payroll or external, that you have a trust in them. It's not that you are hiring them because they say acronyms that don't make sense to you, but that you believe that they're good business people, and they're going to stand by your business today and well into the future.
It really is trust.
Yeah.
Well, thanks very much. This has been helpful.
Thank you.
I enjoyed the conversation. This topic is really near and dear to my heart because I just think it drives everything in a business. And appreciate you sharing your expertise with us.
Absolutely. Thank you.
We'll be back with another segment of Insights for Executives very soon. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it.